Okay, here's our second video of our Getting Ready for Policy Conference, and this is going to be more analytical. What we're going to do tonight in this video is go through the different speeches, the important speeches, and I'm hoping my students are all watching these because these are important. We're going to go hear speeches, and our general impression is, okay, we're going to hear things that we agree with or we don't agree with. Let's take a different approach. Let's take an open-minded approach. But I'm going to give you a couple of perspectives where the speakers are coming from and lessons really that we want to look out for that they're going to say and specific things that they're going to say. Okay, let's talk about one of the most important speeches that we're going to hear, and that's from President Obama. Now, what's President Obama's goal in this speech? His goal, again, it's an election year, his goal is to win favor with the pro-Israel community and show how he is pro-Israel. Now, his obstacle, the big obstacle to this speech, is that the general feeling among a lot of pro-Israel advocates, and even if it's not the general feeling, it's definitely the impression that the administration is getting, is that we feel that President Obama is not pro-Israel. Now, or not pro-Israel enough, and not in the place that we'd like to see him. Now, that's although President Obama has himself been the most cooperative in terms of partnerships between the United States and Israeli military. No other sitting president has done more in terms of cooperation for Israel and the United States than President Obama. But that feeling is still there, and he's got to get over that obstacle. To accomplish that goal, he's got to be strong on Iran. Okay? Now, he's not going to get up there and say he's going to attack Iran. He's not going to say that he's going to support an attack, because his position is that diplomacy and sanctions still must be given time. But he's got to pretty much convince everyone in that crowd that he will be willing to attack if need be. He's got to show that he's going to be balanced on the peace process and not ask for any more concessions from Israel. But overall, he's got to show and convince the crowd that he is a qualified pro-Israel president, and he can't come out sounding defensive. The pitfalls to his speech: anything blaming Israel and any hesitancy on Iran. Okay? He is the best speaker that I think I've ever heard in my life. But this crowd has heard him speak twice before, when he was running for president the last time, and last year. And we've heard him speak before, and a lot of times we haven't been convinced. It's going to take a lot more than rhetoric, and it's going to take a lot more than oratory skill for him to convince this crowd. Okay, next, President Perez. Okay, now, President Perez, you should know, this policy conference is supposed to be really in honor of him. He's been a statesman. He's in his early 80s. The presidency of Israel is a largely ceremonial role, but it's perfect for him towards the end of his career. This is really what he's been waiting for, is this moment to shine in the crowd at AIPAC, and this is going to be a tribute to his life. Now, what his speech that he's got to do is show Israel's greatness. He's coming as a statesman, as the middle ground. He's going to have to show how Israel always wants peace and has gone over and above to try to get peace. He's got to be above the fray, and he's got to show how dangerous Iran is. He's the trusted voice in the room. He's the one without any agendas, and that's basically what he's got to do in his speech. The Republican candidates, 3 Republican candidates are scheduled to speak: Newt Gingrich, Rick Santorum, and Mitt Romney. All those are the 3 candidates scheduled to speak. Now, Newt Gingrich is the only one that's going to be there live. The other 2 are going to be on a live video hookup. Now, what do they have to do? They have to establish themselves as more pro-Israel than the other GOP candidates, and they've got to establish themselves for sure as more pro-Israel than President Obama. Look for them not to knock each other, but look for them to knock President Obama. Okay, and they're going to give cases and examples of where President Obama has let Israel down, and they're going to show that they are more pro-Israel than anyone else. Look for a lot of promises of moving the American embassy from Tel Aviv to Yerushalayim. Look for promises of attacking Iran. Look for them showing that they're not going to ask for any concessions for peace from the Palestinians, and that's up to the Palestinians to make peace. Most of these speeches are going to be meaningless. They're not held to these speeches. There's no accountability for these speeches. But what's going to be great about these speeches is that they're going to move the conversation in a certain direction. It's going to force President Obama, even though they're speaking after President Obama, to move his tone a lot more pro-Israel than it might be otherwise. Okay, that's where the GOP, because they're going to have to move to the extreme of pro-Israel activism. Okay, lastly, the last person I want to concentrate on, or let's just say, let's wait that off, congressional leadership. We're going to hear from Steny Hoyer and Nancy Pelosi. We're going to hear from Senate Leader Harry Reid. We're going to hear from Eric Cantor, the GOP Minority Whip, and Speaker Boehner. All of them are going to, they have serious agendas, but they're going to try to, at least the Republican leaders of Congress, to show how President Obama's policies have not been good enough, and they're going to try to move the conversation to the right. At the same time, the Democratic leadership has to show that they're pro-Israel. It'll be interesting to see if they're going to support President Obama. Last year, they didn't support President Obama. They came out, especially Senator Leader Reid and Ms. Pelosi came out very far to the right of President Obama. It'll be interesting to see that last year they were almost critical of President Obama. It'll be interesting to see what they're going to say this year. Okay. Lastly, and this is the most amazing person that's coming to speak. Yes, it's true. Not to take anything away from the president, from the prime minister, we haven't gotten to yet. But what about Leon Panetta, the defense secretary? Leon Panetta asked to come and speak. Now, let's talk about who he is. He's a former chief of staff of not President Obama, but a different president. He's the former head of the CIA, and now he's the Secretary of Defense. He's in charge of the entire army. He, a couple of months ago at the Saban conference, said that it's mostly up to Israel to get the Palestinians to come to the table to speak. And he used the line, just get to the damn table, just get to the damn table. It's not nice language. I wish he hadn't said it. And it's not nice to the pro-Israel movement. That line really showed that the administration, in a lot of people's eyes, was not as pro-Israel as we'd like. Again, that's the impression that a lot of people got from it. Well, what Secretary Panetta has to do here is sort of backpedal from those comments. And he's got to show that the administration, again, keep in mind, he's a Secretary of Defense, he works for President Obama. And that's why it's amazing that he's coming to speak, because the President himself is coming to speak. So it's a little curious as to why we need yet another person for the administration to speak. We're honored by his presence. It's been over 20 years since the Secretary of Defense has come and spoken to the pro-Israel community. Over 20 years. It's an amazing thing that he's coming. It's going to be interesting to see how and what he says about the peace process. Even more is that the press has painted the administration almost as anti a strike and pushing Israel not to strike against Iran. It'll be very interesting to see how he says whether or not Israel should attack and whether or not America is willing to attack. And again, this man is in charge of the military. Okay, lastly, Prime Minister Netanyahu. What are we looking for in this speech? This is his crowd. The crowd sees him as representing Israel, which he does. 14,000 people are going to cheer him no matter what he does. His staff is talking about how he's going to bring new initiatives to the table. This is a more welcoming crowd than he has in the Knesset. And when he wants to talk about major initiatives, this is the crowd to talk to. So let's see what he talks about. Let's see what he says about Iran. Look for the nuance in his words. He's going to say that the sanctions are not working, that diplomacy is not working against Iran. Let's see just how far he's willing to go and talk about military options, or if he just uses the common phrase of, we can't take anything off of the table. Okay, that's our rundown of speakers, and hope you enjoyed the video.